And last but not least, on this episode of the Shell Game, we're going to talk about UFC fighter pay. If you have been living under a rock, you might not know the back and forth dialogue that has happened between the likes of Jake Paul and Dana White. Obviously, there's been plenty of players in the past who have come forward about being gypped of opportunities for, ranked fights or appropriate pay for fights. From Jon Jones to Masvidal to plenty of others that are now coming forward with the help of outside voices of the organization. And listen, I think that one thing you have to understand is that there's marketing and PR and everything. They literally call themselves the promotion for a reason. And the fight game is huge because you're not dealing with rosters of team and talent. You're dealing with one performer backed by gyms and coaches and smaller organizational units that are trying to position their fighters not only for their career inside of the octagon, but for their brand deals and for their image and for their character that allows them to build other things within their career. And I had a problem with the UFC for a while by incentivizing essentially chaotic behavior with the Khabib and Conor era. A lot of the stuff that was happening there, you got the Covingtons of the world, you just got a lot of loudmouths who know that in order to elevate yourself in the UFC, you got to have odd colored hair, you got to do some crazy celebration. You had people backflipping off the octagon just to get more attention and recognition because they understand that if they have social media relevance, they're going to get paid more. So anytime you have these behavioral attributes of contenders and fighters within an organization like the UFC, in order just to earn the recognition and pay they deserve, you need to take marketing and PR and mostly administrative and operational effort to make sure those people are covered, because you don't have a proprietary approach and perspective on promoting events. At the end of the day, that's all it is. And somebody's going to come along, whether it's within the realm of MMA or somebody like a YouTuber transitioning into the fight world, and they're going to call you out on that, and they're going to have a little bit more pull or different connections that may sting a little bit. They're going to be able to leverage or siphon off of attention or relationships until fighters finally put their foot down, like Francis Ngannou, and saying, I'm not fighting for $500,000 or $600,000 anymore, and that's just not going to happen. And they should be able to do that. There's no reason Jon Jones should be sitting on a shelf despite his off, the octagon or outside of the octagon happenings, which are all up for debate, right? When did sports turn into, okay, we're going to evaluate every aspect of your life, like you're going to become the president of the United States, and we have to make sure we have the most thorough investigative journalistic, get out of here. This is a business within a game, or a game within a business, and you have to treat people fairly. And there is very, very glaring differences between other sports like the NFL and the UFC in regards to how much of overall revenue is given to the people that help you earn that revenue. So I think with the UFC, because fighters have such a direct line and measurable line too, by the way. We live in a day and age where social data is available at a level of clarity that it's never been before between software and integrations and platforms and all that kind of stuff. So there's a straight provable line between a lot of these fighters' ability to promote a fight and the results that they're bringing in, especially when they stamp that with a performance that's worthy of social recognition too, and bringing more eyes to the game. So all of those things have to come together in one unified effort in order for this not to be a PR disaster for the next 12 to 18 months and take a huge chunk out of the UFC. Because I remember they were acquired by ESPN, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, however long ago it was, and obviously that added a lot more programmatic ability, operational ability, resources, systems and processes that were already working, accesses to backdoor organizational things and event spaces and all that kind of stuff, a lot more leverage and pull. However, we've seen so many different acquisitions over organizations and platforms and businesses before, where that corporate red tape and infrastructure and slow response to public appeal has killed the initial zeal and the initial sharpness that was in the startup or the growing organization that they acquired in the first place. So I think if they're not careful, they are going to essentially watch somebody else replicate the good things and execute on the gaps that they had, and ultimately take the attention away and Do I see the UFC really going anywhere as it pertains to an organization? No, they have far too much mind share as an organization, as a brand. So they're definitely going to put pressure on Dana eventually to make some type of decision. But this is you want to catch this stuff before it turns into a California wildfire. You want to catch this. He already missed the opportunity to respond to Jake in a much more calculated way. This isn't your little food show that you do to impress people before fights with humor and all that kind of stuff and diversify your media content. This is real time organizational things that need to be addressed with sophisticated and well crafted with behavioral follow through messaging, so that way people know, okay, this is a priority, this is a focus, and whether or not I agree with the people accusing me, it is something that I'm going to focus on as a leader and as the CEO of a growing and thriving organization. So I think that we need to see some type of PR response from the UFC. And if Dana White doesn't have the capability of clearly communicating that, they need to find somebody who does pretty quick, because you can't be all things as a CEO. Sometimes you need people who are a little bit better at communicating ideas and mobilizing things than the person who's able to grow it to a certain point. And that's business 101, right? Sometimes the people who helped you get to a certain level aren't the people who can help you grow it beyond that level. And I don't think Dana's hitting a cap, but you got to evolve with the times, and nobody's immune to that. So we'll see what happens there with the UFC, but they're in for it this year. And, they have a somewhat of a good schedule for Q1, but compared to the last few years, I was just talking to my family and my friends about this. UFC's schedule is kind of weak, and I wonder if it has a little bit to do with fighters being reluctant to not get what they need when it comes to benefits and fighter pay for these contracts that they're being asked to fulfill. So we'll see. Clauses aside, obligations contractually aside, the UFC needs to address that, and we'll see what they end up doing or suffer the consequences. So this has been episode 1 of the Shell Game. Thank you guys for tuning in. I've enjoyed spending my time with you. Derek Palze on Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere, and we will talk to you guys soon. Peace.